Hello everyone. This is Admissions and Confessions Part 3. Part 3, in the last parts, Part 1 and Part 2, we have covered admissions in great detail. I've tried to explain it comprehensively as much as I could. In this part 3 of this whole video, we'll be covering the concept of confessions. Confessions I'll cover in great detail. Um, we'll be delving into what is confession, what are the major sections of Bharatiya Sakshi Adhiniyam, which is evidence laws, which deals with confessions. So let's start with our video on confessions. Confessions under evidence laws, BSA, we will be dealing with. Firstly, the major question which you all need to answer is confession. You all know what a confession is, right? What you can think about confession in the sense is that somebody comes to the court, and this if this is the person who is accused in this case, he comes before the court, he says not court or any other one as well, and if he confesses means he admits that he only has done the crime. So major constituent ingredients which you can think from this is, firstly, this is an admission by a person. All right, as we have also discussed, a confession is a kind of admission which is made by accused. In this case, accused is coming before the court, and accused is telling the court that he only has done this particular crime. The major important things which you need to remember, this happens only in criminal proceedings, because in this particular case, the person who is coming before the court, he is accused. In this case, he only is confessing that he is guilty of that particular crime. So this whole confession as a topic deals with that, what is admissible, which confessions are admissible in law, what are the major safeguards which the court will need to keep in mind. That because there can be a lot of scenarios, you yourself think that why would a person come and tell to the court that he himself has done something. The court probably accused, there can be multiple reason why the accused has, because probably accused know that he will be caught by the investigation agencies, police investigation is working, so he wants a plea bargaining. Probably that is a kind of a procedural topic, not going into that how plea bargaining and everything work, but there can be a lot of motives. But in this particular concept in the evidence laws, why what we are discussing, our major agenda is to discuss what is a confession is, what kinds of confessions are. These are all things which we'll be dealing here. Firstly, you need to understand about admission. A lot of times this question comes about confession. Firstly, all the confession which is made by accused, it needs to fulfill all the essential ingredients of admissions. Admission, I'm not here explaining in a lot of detail. Firstly, I'll recommend you to watch part 1 and part 2, where I've tried to explain admission in a proper way as to what is an admissible admission and what is not admissible in admission. Because in the admission there are certain ingredients. We also have discussed that admissions are always self-harming. Self-harming in the sense that in this case, if you see, confession is basically proving guilt of accused. So it's proving to be self-harming. What it would result in? It would result in accused getting conviction. He will be convicted for, he will be given punishment for that. So this means this this confession has to fulfill all the requirements of a valid admission. Firstly is this, when you are explaining what a confession is an admission by a person charged with a crime. So this person is charged with a crime. this is essential ingredient. A lot of people are getting confused in the fact that sometimes the question comes is that confession is made by a person randomly. Okay, randomly there is a person who has not even been charged with any crime, who is not accused. Will it be a confession? Then it will not be a confession. Then it merely will be a admission. For admission to become confession, the ingredients are: it should be come from a person charged with the crime, means he should be accused. So to understand who the accused is, you all know that who the accused is. Accused is a person. It includes a person who so for accused, as I told you, he should be charged with an offense at the stage of trial. That is a central requirement which needs to be fulfilled for confession to work. All right. So let's move forward. As I told you, the major things which is important for you to understand: this person should be charged, and he should be stating. So a confession is an admission made by a person charged with a crime, stating or suggesting the inference that he committed the crime. The essential ingredient is that this person should come forward and very clearly, or it should be by inference. It should be by inference. Inference means it can be implied from what the statement, what the admission he has given, that he is only the guilty one. And why the such kind of admission, such kind of confessions are very important in the law, because if this person who is charged with the crime, he himself is saying, this means that there is high probability of truth in this. High probability of truth. High probability of truth. This is the reason later on we will study that these confessions are substantive piece of evidence, and only on the basis of these confessions only a person can be charged for that crime, can be held to be convicted. We'll deal with this. And there is a major case, Pakala Narayan Swami versus Emperor. We're not going into the facts of this case, but the definition of confession was basically defined in this case. And later on, there is also a case of Palvinder Kaur versus State of Punjab. It further, in this case, an admission made at any time by a person charged the crime, stating or suggesting inference he committed the crime. At any time it can be given, and he is basically stating or suggesting, as I told you. This was a definition which was given. And further on in this case, Palvinder Kaur case, was a very landmark case. It further clarified that only direct acknowledgement of guilt amounts to confession. A mixed or qualified statement is not a true confession. What is the meaning of being stating that it should be clear? Why the court wants? Firstly, this person is making himself liable. You understand? Firstly, he is making himself liable. It should be direct acknowledgement. Direct acknowledgement means it should clearly imply, that word is clearly, the implication should be that he should be charged. Why the law don't want mixed statement or qualified statement? Because what usually happen is, if you take this example, if this person A comes to the court and he's charged for murder of B, he tells to the court that I stabbed B, but it happened in self-defense. But it happened, I'm so sorry for the mistake in this, but it happened in self-defense. If you understand, this I stabbed B shows that he is the one only who did the murder of B. This basically means it is inculpatory. If you see the first statement, it is inculpatory nature. Why we are saying inculpatory nature? Because it's proving that B only has committed this whole A has only committed this whole murder of B. So this is inculpatory in nature. Inculpatory part of the statement. This is inculpatory part. So it incriminates him where, so but this part if you see, but it happened in self-defense. If you have studied in law of crimes, that the defenses part, there is self-defense which can absolve means free this the accused from liability. The second part of this whole statement, it is exculpatory in nature. Exculpatory in nature. So it is absolving him from any liability, from the conviction. So he will not be held. So this is basically seems to be a mixed statement. It is not mixed statement, not a proper confession, because in confession, as we have discussed, there should be clear inference. Clearly, it should be stating, or the clear implication should be there that this person has only committed this whole crime. That is the major requirements, as we have discussed also. So let's move forward. Firstly, we were doing this part. This is the type of judicial and extrajudicial confessions. Firstly, let's discuss. We have discussed the definition of confession. So, accused admitting guilt, suggesting he committed the crime. Please read on to it on your own as well. I have tried to explain it in a proper way as we have done initially as well. All confessions are admissions, but not every admission qualifies as a confession. As I told you also, all confessions, whatever confession is given, these all are under admissions. This is like this. If this is admission, these are confessions. Confessions are a subset of admission. Admission has a lot of requirements. Confession is a subset of it. All the confessions are admissions, but because in the confessions, if you see, there are certain because in the confession, if you see, it should only be from accused, not from any other one. But under admissions we dealt with, it could be from legal representative as well, from the person himself as well, from the parties also. So admissions ambit is quite wide. This diagram helps to understand this. Firstly, statements, as I inculpatory statement, part of the confession that clearly implicates the accused in the crime. Like I told you, I established that the example which I have given it to you. Exculpatory is basically, it is used to defend or clear the accused. So what is the true evidentiary value? Which statement should be given emphasis by the court? Which should be considered admissible by the court? And on what basis the court will wholly evaluate the whole matter? The statement given by the accused. If you see in this case, the court must consider the whole statement, both inculpatory and exculpatory part together, not selectively, except only the self-incriminating portion. This prevents fairness. Firstly, you need to understand this such kind of statement which is giving a very mixed opinion about the whole case, about the guilt, about whether the accused is guilty or not. Such kind of statements are not confessions. And again, about this rule about that court will always consider both both exculpatory part and the inculpatory part. This happened with the evolution of the way the court started deciding the cases. So in the case of emperor versus Bal Mukund, this is a case in which basically court found that court cannot only take into consideration the inculpatory part, culpatory, and cannot on its own reject the exculpatory part. Exculpatory. So what was this whole scenario is all about? If the court don't find any evidence which makes this false, which shows that this whole exculpatory statement which the accused has given to defend himself this is false, then the court cannot only take into consideration the culpatory part. The court has to take into consideration both. But further, what the judicial, how this whole shift in the Indian approach happened is with the case of Nishi Kant Jha versus State of Bihar. This is an important case law. How this basically dealt with this whole aspect is, so in this case, what the court held that if there are witnesses there, or eyewitness there, or some corroborative evidences, if the court is able to find all of these, which shows that this whole exculpatory part is false, but this inculpatory part is true. These are the ones who are the independent evidences. These independent evidences are giving, are suggesting that this whole inculpatory part is true. Then the court can disregard the exculpatory part, and this can be used as a confession. Then there are kinds of confessions. Firstly, the judicial confession. Judicial confession is a confession which is made to a court under section 183, 255, 264, 275 of BNS. Refer to these sections to understand what are the judicial confessions are. And then there are the extra judicial confessions. To understand it in more detail, let's take it types of confession. Firstly, judicial confession, they are made before a court or magistrate during formal proceedings. The features are they are made under legal safeguard, ensuring voluntariness and authenticity. Firstly, the accuser is asked whether he's voluntarily giving this whole confession, the statement, and it would amount to a confession, and it could also be a sole basis on which accused can be convicted. Firstly, this serves as the sole basis for conviction if found reliable and voluntary. If the court has the reasons to believe that this whole statement, which amounts to a confession, it has not been made with any inducement, threat, or any coercion or any promise, then it can be considered to be a judicial confession, and it carries greater evidentiary weight due to controlled circumstances, because this kind of confession is given in a particular court proceedings is taking place, and then this person comes forward and tells to the court, all right, this happened, as I told you, the scenario happened in a very controlled manner controlled manner, because judge is there to take care of the safeguards. That's why evidentiary value is quite strong. But then it comes to extrajudicial confession. What is the extrajudicial confession? Usually a lot of questions are asked on this. Doesn't mean extrajudicial confessions can be made outside of the formal judicial proceeding. It can be made to a friend, priest, police, not in authority, or police not in authority. I'll explain you this provision as well, because for the police we have specific provisions. For police we have specific provision. All right. This basically means any kind of extrajudicial confession is they're made to anyone outside the court. Anyone outside the court. Firstly, you need to understand for these the special privileges. As I told you, special privileges will always apply in all of these circumstances. Special privileges is like the privileged information, like the one given to attorney or given to your advocate. These are all covered in privileged information, or your spouse. Any information which is given to a spouse. This all are under the ambit of special privileged, that we are not covering here. We'll cover in the privileged communication section, communication video, when I'll create that video. Firstly, you need to understand that for the extrajudicial confessions, they are made outside of the judicial proceedings. This can be made to a friend priest as well. Now the question should come to your mind is to if it's made to a friend or a priest, probably this person could be lying. Usually what happens is that how in a real court scenario this can work. In such kind of circumstances, a friend or a priest can be given a summon. Probably court wants them to come forward and give a testimony. Whatever the question which the court will put forward, they will have to answer it, because you must know, because you need to know that the summons are given to witnesses, and for the criminal proceedings it becomes a mandate for the witnesses to give a testimony in this. They will answer the cross examination in chief. All of this you will study further when we are reading about the procedural aspect of the criminal procedure, how it usually criminal procedure, how it works. Firstly, I want to explain to you all of you is that they will need to answer certain question, and admissions, whatever statement they will be giving, they are admitting to something. They're giving admissions. All right. In their admissions, they will be stating that what has been said by this person. If A has done the murder and he tells to B, and A and B are friends, and B is called by the court to testify, to answer the question which is given, which is asked by the court, then B will be bound to answer what the A has told to him, and what the statement will be given by him. He will be telling that A has confessed to him. This is a extrajudicial confession, because it has not been made before the court. But one major, what the court will need to take into consideration, the court will give emphasis on the fact that whether this whole confession which was made by A, was it made under certain threat or certain coercion or certain promise was made to A that you will get some of the benefit or something if you accept your liability, if you state that. These are all the safeguards which the court needs to take into consideration. All right. And because we know that witnesses does not have the right to silence. Right to silence is not given to witnesses. Right to silence is given only to accused, as per the self-incrimination principles under Article 20 of the Constitution. Yeah, you also need to understand the separate video we will create on what is self-incrimination, and on these aspects as well. But in this aspect, we are majorly dealing with confession as a topic. My major agenda was to discuss about all of these. I'll also explain to you that why the threat, coercion, promise as a provision of section 22 of BSA. Will further deal with that. Um, you just need to understand the fact about, we have covered these all. Then we are coming forward with which, yeah, yes, so extrajudicial confession, we have also it must be voluntary, specific and definite. As I told you, there should be specific, voluntary and definite to be a call to be extrajudicial confession. And another major requirement which needs to be fulfilled is that reliability, credibility of the recipient, and the absence of coercion. It never happened that this person comes, like if A's friend comes and tells the everything. Now the statement of B, whatever B is stating as a witness before the court, it will be examined. Examination chief, cross examination will happen, because this shows that it will be used to test whether the extrajudicial confession which BA's friend is telling to the court, is it true or not. All the safeguards the court needs to ensure how it happens. Because we are here dealing with how evidence law happen in theory, but if you need to get the practical opinion as to get, you need to do. You should go to office. You need to visit court. You will understand that how it happens in practicality. You'll get a better perspective on this factor, and requires corroboration, supportive evidences. Firstly, the major difference between a judicial confession and an extrajudicial confession is, when it comes to judicial confessions, because it is made under a controlled scenario, and it is a magistrate and a judge who is taking this whole, who is listening to this confession, who is recording this confession. It has higher credibility, higher it's considered to be more reliable, credible, and it is a substantive evidence. Means you do not need to need any other further evidence. On the basis of itself, the person can be convicted if no other evidence is found by the court, and court finds that his confession is reliable. All right, and this can become the sole basis of conviction if this confession is found to be true by the court. But in the cases of extrajudicial confessions, judicial confession, because judicially get to know about this confession through some third party, because some other person is going to tell the court that this was confessed by the accused. This is considered this required this is not only a supportive evidences, like there it requires a corroboration corroborative evidences in the fingerprints or some other evidences which suggest that this confession is true. That will also be taken into consideration, not a sole basis. Extrajudicial confessions are not the sole basis on which the conviction can happen. That is a major difference also, you need to take care and need to understand properly. So also in the case of Saho versus state of UP. This is an important case because here in this case, one major development as to what extrajudicial confession was something which was interpreted by the court. Firstly, in this case, what happened in this case, the one who was accused, he was heard muttering in a sense, he was just murmuring. He was murmuring that he killed. He was confessing he killed, and because in this case there were few people who heard him saying these all, and these all witnesses were called before the court, and they said that accused said that. And in this question, in this major case law, what the major question which was dealt by the court was, in this case Supreme Court held that confession to be relevant, it is necessary, it is not necessary it should be communicated to some other person. Here in this case, he had not communicated to some other word, he was only murmuring. But since it was heard by someone, it will be considered to be extrajudicial confession. That is a major development which happened. It shows that if another person merely heard it, still then it can be considered to be extrajudicial confession. That is a major development which happened. We have covered all of these successfully in this uh, class. I've tried my best to explain all of you as much as I could, the basic essentials as well. Now the major now the are important sections in terms of when confessions are relevant, as to what are the safeguards which the court needs to take into consideration if this whole because in that we dealt with that extrajudicial confession, can the confession which is made to a police is also admissible in the court? That is a major question which we need to answer. And then the further question is about if the confession by co-accused, there are two people who are convicted for the same crime, they tried together, and one accused comes out and tells the court the truth, confesses before the court, can the other person be also held liable? What are the principles associated with this? These are some of the major important topics of confession topic which we will be dealing in part 4 of the videos on admissions and confessions. So in order to be engaged with all of such interesting videos which I always come forward with on your from for the law subjects, like we are here by dealing with admission and confession, which is one of the essential, I would say one of the very important topic of evidence laws, because a lot of questions are every year asked in whatever exam you're preparing for in the terms in the domain of law. If you like this video, please do subscribe the channel, like this video, and stay tuned for part 4 of this video, where I will be covering all the rest of the sections of confession topic in a lot of more detail about the police powers, which is a very important question. So please do subscribe and also share, comment to me as to if you like this video, share some of your insights as to how I can improve my videos. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you.